of the Lake Lure Town Council, June 13th, 2017. Would you please all rise for invocation and pledge of allegiance? Heavenly Father, despite all the thunderstorms all around us, thank you for this beautiful day and for being with us this day. Thank you for all your blessings, and please guide us as we make decisions for the benefit of our community. Help us to listen and communicate effectively in doing your work here on earth. We ask these things in thy holy name. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, item number 2 is the agenda adoption.
Okay, I'll make the motion, we approve the agenda as written.
A motion made by Bob. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mary Ann. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Mayor's communications, the only thing I saw, today's paper had Lake Lure among the top 15 in the clearest bodies of water in North America. And they had, it's written up in the Daily Courier today, and that's pretty prestigious for such an honor. And they had destination sites in Canada and Lake Tahoe and a few others. So kind of an interesting article if you want to look it up. Town manager communications. Ron?
Thank you, Mayor. Donnie is here tonight. He's going to give us a quick update on the generator repairs at the dam.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I spoke with Mike Whitaker from Powerhouse Mechanical, and he gave us a quick update. He said that they have completed 50% of the weld repairs to the runner and have started machining down the shaft. Said all of the bolts, including the adjuster bolts, are in production now and should be starting the collars later this week. So there's a lot of work to do, and he's trying to keep it on schedule. They've had some emergencies come in that they've had to take care of in front of us.
Okay.
Donnie, do you mind just giving a quick update with the large generator? We're probably going to notice some fluctuations in the lake level. Do you mind just covering that for folks?
Yeah, right now the water coming in, it's really low. And we recover some over the evenings when we aren't running overnight. And then when we have to run it off during the day, we're noticing, we're trying to keep it shut down and keep it within normal operating parameters, but sometime it may hit the lower parameters. We're about 6 to 8 inches down is what it has been running. But once we hit the 8, we typically shut down unless there's 80% chances of thunderstorms during the days. But we're trying to be mindful of it, but you know, it's just one of those things. Without the small generator, it takes the big generator, a lot of water to operate, and there's really no control. We can try to run it about 60%, but that's a very small amount of water that we're saving.
Are we doing any damage to that large generator by trying to do that?
Not necessarily. We're running it more than we would, which will wear out moving parts, bearings, gears, and stuff like that, but nothing that, just normal wear and tear from generating.
And that's a 1919 model
Yes, sir.
also?
Yeah.
So wear and tear is pretty
Yeah,
expensive by now anyway.
yeah. I mean, it's expensive fix. I mean, the bearings are going to have to be replaced once we get the small generator back, but we already have the bearings on site, so it won't be much of a.
And that's a repair that can be done in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Let's see, Chief Morgan, he's going to give us a quick update on the ISO inspection, and then we also, I understand, have some news about the flyovers for the planes that he just wants to pass on to y'all.
Good evening, Council. Just a couple short comments. I was asked to speak briefly on the ISO inspection that we recently went through, actually last week. And for the benefit of the audience, maybe people that are not familiar with, ISO stands for Insurance Services Offices. And this is the agency, the national agency that regulates the fire insurance ratings for everybody's home business, such as these ratings, this inspection process is what's used to grade fire departments. And from that grade that we receive, or any fire department receives, that's what they base homeowners' insurance rates on. So it's very significant to pretty much everybody that owns real property, in the town or pretty much anywhere as far as that goes. We were last inspected, actually the first inspection by ISO Lake Lure was in 2001. At that time, we were inspected, and because of our uniqueness, we keep hearing that was a pretty lengthy and in-depth inspection. It lasted probably over a week at that time. We received, at that time, we had a Class 9 rating. After that inspection, we went to a Class 6-9 rating, a split rating, which means that everyone inside the town that was within 1,000 foot of a fire hydrant or 1,000 foot of the lake because of the fireboat would get a Class 6 insurance. Some of the areas in town that were more remote, didn't have a water system, wasn't near the lake, still are receiving that Class 9 insurance rating. So we haven't been inspected since 2001, so it's been 16 years since an inspection. So even though we went through it, a lot has changed. So we obviously constantly are trying to prepare for this with all the records we're keeping and tests we're doing, such as that with the fire departments. Our goal this time was to try to extend or expand that Class 6 rating to more individuals in town so that more people will get the benefit of that. The downside of me reporting on this inspection tonight is we won't know what the results for about 90 to 120 days, and that's kind of their standard answer. So the inspector spent 2 days with us. He spent basically a 10-hour day just going through records at our office, and then the next day, that was last Monday, Tuesday, we spent pretty much all day. Some of you may have seen the fire trucks running around town, but we spent pretty much all day Tuesday actually demonstrating exercises in the field to the inspector, timed exercises. So you may have seen trucks moving at a pretty good rate of speed over a short distance, but it was timed, and those times are a direct result on our rating, how quickly we can perform an exercise. So the fire departments, all the fire departments were involved, our town fire departments, obviously Lake Lure, Bills Creek, Chimney Rock, Fairfield, everybody participated, and we had pretty much all the fire trucks out, during that time working, and many of our volunteers and pretty much all of our paid staff out working during that day. As far as we know, according to the inspector, everything went well. No surprises, no red flags. That's been reported. We just won't know the results for quite some time. But here again, and we did get some comments about, somebody commented about the marina, and it was shut down for a couple hours, but it was necessary for the inspection. We had to have that large area to use for the field site and dump site to satisfy the inspector's needs. And they picked those sites. We don't know ahead of time until they arrive. They say, okay, we're going to go here and do this. So it wasn't like we really had a lot of notice. But we apologize if it inconvenienced anybody, but it's for everybody's benefit.
We certainly appreciate all your hard work and those in the department. It was a good job. I think y'all did well.
Well, thank you. And for those of y'all at Facebook, we got some nice pictures on our Facebook page, like the fire rescue. So if you want to look at some of the things we've done, there's quite a few pictures on there.
Yeah, and I think you did a good job as well, and for the benefit of the audience, as part of this, the fire protection ordinance was updated in its entirety. And if you want to look at that, it's on the town website under, was it chapter 31 or 32?
Chapter 31.
31?
31.
31. So it's on the town website, and that entire ordinance was updated. I believe the new one has already been posted, Andy, or?
I'm not sure, but if it's not, we'll have
Oh, okay.
I'll check.
Okay. So, but yeah, that's a great job, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
And that spanned a time of somewhere between 4 and 6 months in preparation for some of this work, and a lot of nights of running through these drills, which is pretty extensive. It's, I congratulate you.
Thank you. We did have a question about, this hit during season. This was originally scheduled for last fall. Y'all may know we had a little interruption last fall. So it got postponed a couple times for a couple reasons, and so normally we wouldn't want to do it first week in June, but it just happened that way. But I think without a whole lot of interruption. And again, I want to reiterate what the mayor said. We kind of worked the volunteers and the paid staff to death. We did a lot of training and preparation, and I think it paid off. Hopefully it'll pay off anyway. So,
We thank you.
oh, thank you.
Were you going to say something about the planes?
Yeah, if Ron could just give a quick update on that.
I understand it, I wasn't able to be here last month, but I understand there were some questions come up about the low-flying airplanes. And we get some of those every year. It may, I think it's a little earlier this year than normal, maybe, but it may be a little bit more often. But the question come up about the low-flying airplanes, what were the rules, what were the regulations, and if there's anything that we could do about it, is my understanding. So that's kind of the way we went at it. The police department, I'm gonna give Kat the credit for this, because Kat and I both contacted FAA. She got results quicker, so good for her. And so I've stolen her information here. So this is kind of what we come up with, and I've tried to just bullet point this. The entirety of the information, my understanding is Valerie will put on town website, so anybody that wants to read in depth, feel free there. So basically the question was concerning the low-flying airplanes, and according to the FAA rules, as I understand them, as I've read them, basically the rules for low-flying airplanes is they have to be 1,000 foot above the highest obstacle within 2,000 foot of the plane at that time. So now that's in occupied or congested areas. So that probably is not the rule that applies to us. The next rule would be 500 feet above the surface in uncongested areas. The next one is an exception over open water or sparsely populated areas that cannot operate within 500 feet of a person, vessel, vehicle, or structure. So any way you look at it, I think what it boils down to is about 500 feet is what their rules in this area probably would be. If they're flying over the water, they're typically going to be close to a structure, a boat, or something this time of year. So
What we've seen has, what I've seen down the main channel has violated that.
right. So this is what the FAA recommends to us. So if we witness this, they recommend that obviously we need evidence as much as we can get. So everybody carries a cell phone. So if you can get pictures, it would be great if you get pictures that's got something in the background that gives us a reference point of, how high they are.
Right.
So pictures would be great. If not pictures, as many witnesses that we have that can kind of testify or give some kind of judgment about how high they are or how low they are. And then one of the big things is the tail number of planes. I've been here for almost 23 years, and I get these calls every year. And the first question I have is, what have you got? I need the tail number, some distinguishing characteristics of the plane. That's what they ask me for. I've called the Asheville Tower numerous times over the years, and they always ask me for that information. If we don't have that information, it's pretty hard for them to follow up on. So anything that we can get, basically tail numbers of the plane, location, date, time is really good too, because it helps them track it down. So that's what they need from us to be able to go any further. And if we notify the FAA, they will, with enough information, they will assign an inspector to try to track down the pilot of the plane and then take whatever necessary measures for enforcement, whether it's a fine, and it could, all the way up to the pilots losing their license if it was a severe enough violation. As far as the town, the other question come up, I think, was about what could we do as a town with an ordinance or something like that be appropriate. What we found out from FAA is any ordinance that we tried to adopt would have to be approved by the FAA, and most likely would just mirror the FAA's regulations, and probably the federal regulations are going to be more stringent than ours anyway. The other option is, somebody brought up restricted airspace. That's obviously, limited to, you'd say, critical areas. The inspector gave the example of like Fort Knox has a restricted airspace. But I think probably the most appropriate thing that we've already talked about is, getting the information out. If somebody sees or witnesses this, get that information that we discussed and either get it to the police department. You as an individual obviously can report it to the FAA. But if we get more than one sighting, it might help our case to address these. Any questions?
It's just, the only problem you'll have is early in the morning or late in the day, if you don't have any boats on the lake, you can go all the way to the water. So just be sure there's traffic out there, another boat or whatever, but just let you know if it's an empty lake and there's nobody there, he's got the right to
No,
get.
it said 500 feet.
Yeah, but when he comes down the middle of the lake and there's no boats there, he's not in violation.
He was at the level of my deck.
Oh, I
Went by.
agree, but I'm just saying,
I had one too.
yeah, I'm supporting it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, just be sure you got boats around or he's within 500 feet, because if there's nobody within 500 feet, he can go all the way and touch the water.
I
But
think you're reading
all
it
the
correctly.
structures and the properties that are on there too, I mean, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a
If he's
boat
not-
or a person.
But I agree, if he comes within 500 feet of ground, I just want to clarify it because I'm a pilot and I understand the rule. The rule is, if there's not a boat out there on that lake, he can go all the way to the water, as long as he pulls up within 500 feet of the end of the lake, he's within the rules.
Was it you out there joyriding?
No, nope, but I did see a biplane
Make sure.
that came down Saturday, I think, that flew down the lake Saturday,
Yeah.
but I was
Well,
too far
If he flies
away.
down
I
the
got
middle
you.
of the lake, in most places, there is a structure within 500 feet.
Sure.
I understand, I'm just saying there's areas he can get by with, so just please be sure there's a boat or something around. But if it's early in the morning, or, I'm just telling you from a legal standpoint, they can't enforce it if there's nobody around. It's just, that's the rules over water.
That's the way I read it, and I think that's where pictures or proof of
Yes.
that there was a boat, a vessel, a
Yes.
vehicle, a structure, something like that within that area is.
Well, we had that a couple of years ago, or it was actually before Chris Braun left, and there were pictures, there was actually a video of it.
Yeah, I
And
remember
nothing
that
was
one.
done about it.
I don't think,
Nothing.
and I seen that video, but to the best of my recollection, I don't think we can make out the tail numbers completely.
Yeah, he was sideways,
Yeah,
and he's lucky he didn't crash.
yeah.
But yeah, I saw that. But anyway, just, that's the rule, just make sure we all support it, we just gotta make sure we've got the right evidence. So, thank you, Ron,
Good. Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Just a couple of quick updates. ABC store update, just to let the board know that the demolition permits have been issued. We will likely start work on that very soon. We expect our construction documents to be ready probably within the next 30 days. I did want to ask, just to see if council would prefer to see the bidding documents before we send that out, or are you comfortable with us, staff, going ahead and sending those out and getting bids?
If council doesn't mind, I'd like to review them with you.
Okay,
I'd like to see a copy.
okay.
Yeah, so-
So everybody would like to see it?
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll
yeah.
plan to get those bidding documents and get those ready for your next meeting.
Thank you.
Please clarify, when you said demolition and ABC store, we're not talking about the current building, we're talking about the inside of the new building.
Thank you.
Demolition of that, so it can be remodeled. So
That's
make
correct.
sure everybody understands that.
Thank you. Also, just want to say a quick thank you to our emergency services, police department, fire department, public works, especially Gunnar and Melody and Andy, who were out there Memorial Day weekend. I know had a wonderful festival, a lot of good beach time, and then had that storm that night. So we appreciate everybody's emergency response that night and the cleanup. You went there the next day and you couldn't even tell something had happened. It was quite the event, and we certainly appreciate y'all's work. The final little note is just to let the board know that I will be out for vacation July 17th through the 28th. Hopefully budget and everything will be done by then, and
Was that in his contract, he got
No,
vacation?
no.
get a little bit of time off there. So
I recall it said no vacations for the first 5 years.
That's what I
That's
thought.
what I thought.
Yeah.
that'd be
That's
tough.
3 to
See,
1, Ron.
that's 3 to 1.
I have to renegotiate that.
Yeah.
Too late,
Yeah.
contracts are signed.
All right. So, but if
Thank
you
you.
certainly need anything, just let me know.
Steve will call you.
Okay, Andy, you all set? Okay. And item number 5, the public hearing on the 2017-18 fiscal year budget public hearing. And Ron will go through his presentation, and then we'll allow anybody to come up and speak.
All right, thank you, Mayor. As y'all know, you've been working very hard over the last couple of weeks, putting together the final touches on a 2017-2018 budget. It's my privilege to present that to you tonight. The total budget for 2017-18 is $6.7 million. The general fund budget is about 5.2. That's a little bit of an increase, about $95,000 over last year. The water and sewer fund budget is $1.2 million, which is about a $45,000 increase. And the electric fund budget is $351,000, which is a pretty substantial decrease from last year, about $434,000. The tax rate, everybody would be happy to hear this, is proposed to remain the same at .276 per $100 valuation, or 27 cents. And just so everyone knows, 1 cent on the tax rate generates about $83,600 for us. The budget, if you get a chance to look at it, is divided into 6 sections. The introduction, the policy document, which you worked on real hard in December and January, the financial plan, which talks about the summary of all the revenue sources and the expenditure sources, and the operational guide. If I was going to spend a lot of time in any of these sections, I would spend most of my time in the operational guide. The operational guide just gives you a very concise reporting of where the money comes in and where it goes. The CIP, the summary, is also included in your budget document as well as the glossary. We have several significant impacts that are shaping our budget this year. Of course, capital projects, Morris Park restrooms, the firing range enhancement project, vehicle and equipment needs, street paving, and the marina expansion. Personnel costs also have a significant impact. Those are cost of living adjustments, insurance and benefit costs which have risen, the salary study implementation, longevity, and the addition of 1 full-time employee in the fire department and 2 part-time employees, 1 in administration and 1 in Parks and Recreation. Of course, as always, the rising cost of doing business also affects the budget. Just talk briefly about the general fund revenue. As you know, most of our general fund revenue comes from the tax rates, ad valorem tax revenue. Interestingly enough, our tax revenue decreased by about 0.5%, which made putting this budget together a little bit more difficult. There is projected growth in your sales tax and your utility franchise tax, which are 2 of your next largest revenue sources. Boat permits have also risen to about $335,000, and it will require an appropriation of about $150,000 from your fund balance. As you can see in this pie chart, the ad valorem taxes represents about 48% of your total revenues, followed next by transfers, which mostly comes from your capital projects. Some expenditures. You'll see this is a busy pie chart, but I will point out that police, fire, public works, and your lake are your largest operating expenditures in the general fund. For cost of living, 1.5% has been proposed effective July 1st, as well as implementing the full cost of the salary study recommendations. That's proposed to go into effect January 1st of 2018. Health insurance costs rose by, I believe it was 10%, or has that been revised, Sam? Is it 7 or 10? 7. It was revised to 7%. Retirement, of course, is Retirement System Division has increased their rates effective July 1st. And as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 new staffing areas. 1 is firefighter, 1 part-time in communications for administration, and 1 part-time for grounds maintenance. Quick rundown of the departments themselves. As you know, the commission salaries, wages fund this board, as well as the administrative work by town council. In administration, we have the auditing, legal, and accounting money at about $64,000. It also allocates funding for tax collection for about $14,000 charged by Rutherford County. Central Service Department supports the town's technology, and telecommunication functions. Police, personnel costs of about $610,000, operating expenses of about $82,500. In fire, as we talked, 1 additional full-time employee of about $40,000, and it continues funding for volunteer fire departments in the amount of $174,000. Public Works allocated new equipment in that budget for about $15,600. Sanitation, just so you know, the sanitation contract and recycling contract both had increases this year. And as most of you read in the newspaper, Rutherford County is either just passed or recommending a tipping fee increase, which will affect us. Under economic development, we talked about the part-time employee in communications to replace contract services, $37,700, and it allocates funding for the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Association. Community development, the board identified 3 new initiatives in the comprehensive plan update calendar. Those monies are set aside for $25,000. In Parks and Recreation, funds have been requested $10,000 for the Flowering Bridge Committee, and we've plugged that back in. Allocates funding in ground maintenance and contractual services for the World Equestrian Games, and also 1 additional part-time employee to help with that at $14,500. For golf, you'll see the operation of the municipal golf course costs us roughly about $81,000 each year. Lake Department, $325,000 in dredging or silt removal. That is a little bit of a decrease. And request $3,000 in new equipment. The non-governmental department supports the town's insurance, bonding, unemployment, and administrative fees. The capital projects approved to date include the firing range enhancement, the Morris Park Recreation Plan, the Marina Bay Boardwalk, which is an engineering study, the police vehicle replacement, the police radio replacement, street assessment study, street paving, cart path repair, and the main beach house repairs. Our debt service required by general statute, $261,500 for payments for vehicles, equipment, and buildings that the board has already committed to. New debt is proposed for the construction of Morris Park restrooms, $94,000, and the marina expansion is $160,000. It is important to point out that with the marina expansion, the revenues received off of that expansion will easily pay for your debt service costs. Quick summary on what you get for your Lake Lure tax dollar. Public safety, probably the largest, police and fire at 29 cents, administration at 18, recreation at 17, public works at 13 cents. At 27.6 cents per $100 property valuation, a $300 home generates roughly about $828 in tax revenue. That's roughly about $69 a month, and I just put some ideas down there about what you can pay for $69 a month or what you can get from us for $69. The categorical expenses, you'll see personnel, about 48%. That's usual for towns our size. Operating expenses of around 40%, capital outlay at 6%, and debt at 6%. So as you can see, the town's done a good job at keeping their debt levels low. Water and sewer fund. Operating revenues are budgeted at $1.2 million. This represents a $45,000 increase in revenues. It proposes no adjustment at this time to existing water and sewer rates, and the charges account for about 98% of our water and sewer fund revenue. So you can see it's a lopsided chart, but again, 98% comes from those charges. Expenditure highlights for your water and sewer fund, $119,000 in existing debt service payments, and for the first time this year, the debt off of our Green Line project hits at $390,000. It allocates $113,500 for contract services to operate our wastewater treatment plant, and it funds $4,000 in four projects in capital outlay for $82,000. The water and sewer fund will also reimburse the general fund about $15,000 for shared expenses. In your water and sewer fund, you have operating expenses around 42% in the red, debt at about 42%, and again, that's increased because of the Green Line. Personnel at about 9% and capital outlay at 7%. Our electric fund, operating revenues are budgeted at about $351,000. Without considering transfers, it represents a $224,000 decrease in revenues. Charges for service accounts for all but $1,000 as electric revenue, and the electric fund will also reimburse the general fund about $15,000. Expenditure highlights, it allocates $50,000 in funding for the repair and maintenance to the hydroelectric dam. It funds 5 capital projects in the amount of about $100,000. And it will transfer $14,800 and any of the remaining revenues at the year end to fund equity. And again, the idea is to start building that reserve for replacements. Operating expenses of around 50% in your hydroelectric fund, 29% in capital outlay, 21% in personnel, and there to date is no debt in that fund. So where do we go from here? We have the budget review by town council, the hearing tonight, and the town council now has about 2 weeks, I guess, for additional time for review and amendments, and the adoption is scheduled for June 27th. The budget is available with the town clerk here at Town Hall. They're also available here. I've got it behind the desk there at our council meeting, and you can also find it on the website at townoflakelure.com. So again, just a rough rundown of what y'all have done to date, and be glad to answer any questions.
We appreciate the staffs and your hard work on this. This is a great presentation and hopefully informative for our audience. But thank you very much. I know
Yeah, thank you.
it was tough.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, no one has signed up for any comments. Would anybody like to comment on the budget or make suggestions? We do like input and would like to hear from the public if you have something to share with us.
There's one.
I see a hand. Yes, Patty. Well, come on forward, Patty. You're not shy.
Oops.
I'm here representing the pickleball group, and just wondering if you could update us on the plans for the pickleball courts that were at one time, placed on the budget for this coming year. If you could just update us, I'd appreciate it.
If I may, we were looking at resurfacing the tennis court. And then once that was resurfaced, whether to paint it for pickleball court or keep it tennis or what have you. Then we also, and of course, pickleball was never on the budget. It was in the consideration of capital projects and the resurfacing of the court. The Morse Park restrooms was actually tagged as number one, the thing that we need to do the most. In the process of discussing that, we found and detected a need for a Morse Park plan, looking long range, 15, 20, 25 years down the road, on where we would want to put the restroom facility and where we would, if we resurfaced the court or destroyed it to rebuild it somewhere else, where we would want it. So we're looking at the plan, which really needs to precede the placement of the restrooms and deciding on what needs to be done with the existing tennis court and where a pickleball court or tennis court would need to be located. And that's what really needs to come first before we can talk actually doing that pickleball court. We have not dismissed the idea. We know it's a popular sport at this point in time, and we're not, we are still considering. I mean, it still is in the long range looking, but that might be something next year. It wouldn't be this year. So,
Just so you know that Steve is the council liaison with the Parks and Recreation.
And we appreciate you fixing the divot in the one tennis court. Do you have plans to put the net back up so we can utilize that court?
I know there was talk about that being cut out and repaired. I hadn't been briefed. Has it been done? Okay. So, yeah, as far as I know, the nets could be.
Yeah, we'll check on that for you.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Patty. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing no hands, we'll move on. Number 6, council liaison reports and comments. Bob, why don't we start with you? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, we had our meeting for the Lake Lure Utilities Board on June 6th. We have representatives from Pangea, Point Broadband, and Telrad Networks. We've worked with them in the Utilities Board, and it's now before council tonight to go ahead and allow them to put a new satellite out on the water tower to improve your wireless and internet connections. We have a plan to go up to 3 locations to improve that. This will be with the newest technology. These representatives from Point Broadband and Telrad have a proven history through the south and towards New Orleans, Mississippi. So we're going to try to improve your networks and your cell service and try to include that in it. But mainly it's for your Wi-Fi and for your internet connections. Hopefully tonight we'll get that approval to go ahead and put the satellite onto the water tower. And then our responsibility is to find 2 more locations that have been highlighted through the report. And we're going to hopefully ask the town manager to work with Pangea and these groups to go ahead and find the locations, see what we need to do to be able to erect a tower on them and to improve this internet service for our community. We will try to get your cell phones included, but that's not part of the deal right now. But we've got to have these towers to get you some Wi-Fi. And to update you, let you know, the Utilities Board has met with AT&T. We got very little response from them, very little promises. Anything to be done with them would be a 5 to 10 year out schedule. So we felt like getting with these broadband companies would be the best way. And we've met with several, and from what we can tell, this is our best resolution for an answer as quickly as we can and servicing as quickly as we can. Once that is put up onto the cell tower, they're saying 30 to 45 days that they'll start services. So hopefully this will be a positive way to go for us. And that's basically what the meeting was all about.
Just to point out too, is that I know a lot of you have Skyrunner and are very pleased with it. It doesn't step on Skyrunner. It's an open solution, so Skyrunner still can participate, and so can other vendors. So this is just a step moving forward to get higher speed connectivity with Wi-Fi wireless connections.
Thank you.
Okay, there has been no ABC board meeting since my last report because we met last month on the 3rd Tuesday, and the ABC board had met that day, which for those who weren't here had to do with a discussion of a potential contract between the ABC board and the town on their lease of the new property. That probably is going to be in the fall, possibly late fall, before we see any movement in that direction. Also, the planning for the renovation of the strip mall was reported on earlier in the meeting. The Lake Advisory Board had discussions primarily on fees for commercial boat slips. They made a recommendation to the Marine Commission, and earlier tonight that was tabled or postponed. It was not approved due to the need for more study and by the Marine Commission. An update of lake use regulations was approved by the Marine Commission earlier this evening. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, John?
The Zoning and Planning Board met on May 9th. There was a request from the town for a permanent sign be placed over in the Pool Creek Picnic Park area adjacent to the ABC store. That was approved. And there was also a review and discussion of an application filed by Carolina Water Services, that's CWS, and operate up in Roman Ball. It was for a conditional use permit to expand and operate public utility building and facilities on their parcel located at 185 Whitney Boulevard. That site was also referred to as CWS well number 8. The permit is needed to make improvements necessary for enhancing the water treatment at that site. Zoning and Planning Board reviewed the recommendation, approved it, and passed it on to the Board of Adjustment, which will also need to hear it. And that was it.
Okay, thanks, John. Stephen?
The same case, the Board of Adjustment met that same day in a special meeting and did approve the commercial use permit for the Carolina Water Service to get that problem fixed over in Rumbling Bog. Later, the regular meeting for the Board of Adjustment was canceled later that month because there were no hearings. The Lake Structure Appeals Board did meet May 23rd and had one lake structure variance case over on 236 Mark Twain Drive that was approved. An individual had added a dock area to his boathouse that was bordering on the side yard setback, and that was approved. The Parks and Recreation Committee has been very, very busy. Gosh, there's just a lot going on. Geese mitigation, and I was chastised for not reporting this last month, so I want to make sure I get it out to you this month. This year, there were 84 eggs oiled and 14 nests found. And there's been, our goose population does seem to be diminishing. And in case you haven't thought about the impact of this program, where they go around and spot these nests and then go up and oil the eggs so the geese cannot hatch, a total of 550 eggs have been oiled over the last 8 years. So you imagine if those 550 eggs had hatched and had babies, what we would have in the way of a goose problem that we used to have. So that's a very effective program. Parks and Rec members of that board are participating in an ad hoc committee with the town manager, along with members of the Lake Advisory Board and members of the Asset Management Board to discuss the concession agreements coming up for renewal with the marina and the beach and the tour concession. Luremont Trail System, you might have heard a little bit about that up in Luremont across the road from the ABC store and back behind La Strada and all that area. We're looking at a trail system up there, and there's surveys being done on that. It's all town property that those trails would be located on. There's been no change in the Ditmer Watts Park and Trail System. The golf course had 490 rounds of golf and 27 rounds of foot golf in May. And they're finishing up with the bunker on number 2 and number 8 coming up next. So a lot going on at the golf course. They're getting ready for summer with a junior tournament. So Dale Minnick out there is doing a lot. Buffalo Creek Park and the trail to Eagle Rock, that's about 8 to 9 miles of trail that has been finished. It has not been officially open. The signage is being done and worked on very hard. They're trying to get everything figured out to capture some end-of-year funds to make sure we don't lose those. So that park is not open. It's not a regular park walk like you see out here. It's a very arduous trail. And the Pool Creek Picnic Park, the sign that Commissioner Moore mentioned, has been, they're supposed to be ready June the 5th. Should be up already, I would think. Has it been installed? Do you know, David? Has not been installed yet? Or don't know if it's come back? Okay. The Flowering Bridge has been dealing with a lot of theft issues. So people just walking up and stealing flowers. So if you see anything like that, report it. We got to try and nip that in the bud. Tonight we're going to have a briefing from Linda Turner on the expense report of the Flowering Bridge. If you've been over in Morse Park today, you might have noticed some paving going on. That is being done by grant. And there's actually some extra money that's going to be left over, and the people giving us that grant approved using the extra money for trash cans and benches. And that's all of it for the park system. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Stephen. Okay, that concludes the liaison reports. Moving into item number 7, public comment. Again, the public's invited to speak on any non-agenda topic. I had nobody sign up. Does anybody change their minds and would like to come up and say some good things or say some, chastise us or? Okay, hearing none. Well, we'll move on. Okay, item number 8 is the consent agenda. Looking over, that's minutes,
Oh.
budget, and
I had some questions on item C on that. I should have brought this up earlier to move it on the agenda, but we could probably deal with it before we vote on the consent agenda, if it's all right.
sure.
Item C is finance area, Sam. It's regarding that improving an installment contract for the 4 new town vehicles. From what I read, it seems like 3 of them had been purchased and the 4th one had not.
That's correct. 3 of them had been purchased earlier. The 4th one was purchased, I think, beginning of May.
So the 3 that were purchased, the basic agreement then was 3.5%, but because the 4th one wasn't purchased, now we have to pay 3.75 on all 4 vehicles?
If you remember, we did the reimbursement where we would purchase the vehicles, then once we got them purchased, we would go out and get the close on the loan. So we were waiting for the last vehicle to be purchased.
So just simply because we had not closed it and bought all 4, we got to pay an extra 0.25% on all 4 vehicles.
Right. The last purchase was a fire truck, and the reason why we didn't purchase that fire truck is we had a fire in November, and it just put everything back. So it was a timing thing.
So we take that 0.25% out of the fire department budget.
Well, that's a 0.25% more on all the vehicles,
Yeah,
so
right.
not just the one.
I know.
Gee.
I'm just
Well,
asking.
so let me ask you, looking then at the resolution in here that we're being asked to approve with this, it said the amount financed shall not exceed $133,995 collectively. But does that in any way exceed what we budgeted
No.
last year for those 4
No,
vehicles?
no. It's
Does it
actually going
in
to come under that amount.
Okay, does the savings there help pay off that extra 0.25%?
Yes, pretty close.
I don't like close when we're dealing with finances.
You heard the saying, good enough for government work?
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'll make the motion, we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Mary Ann. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to item number 9, unfinished business. And this is basically to establish a date at which time we can come back together to adopt the current year, the next year's budget. And it's right now, it's set for June 27th, and I know there's a BOA meeting in the afternoon.
Right.
So would somebody come up with a,
Well, it's got blank PM, but why could we not do it AM that day?
okay, how about 9 a.m.?
Okay,
That'll work, 9 a.m.?
that's fine with me. I'm
Okay,
good. Right.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's 9 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, item number B is,
Could I just ask, are there any additional changes or any other information that you'll need before then? Because if not, we'll go ahead and prepare that ordinance for you and have it ready.
I'm good.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, I've got some changes to the budget that we talked about. So. You want to do those now?
If you'd like. Either that or we could hold another meeting.
Well, okay. One is during the budget workshop, we talked about the longevity pay increases and whether or not they were bonus type or raise type. Longevity raise, where you actually increase the salary. And the amount budgeted, I went back to Ron and asked him, the amount budgeted, of course, includes the FICA to be paid with that amount of money. It does not include benefits. So if we did go to the raise system, it would actually be more than what was budgeted. So what I recommend is that this year, we do the original bonus-type longevity system that we have been, and to look at a policy change and a system that would be sustainable. Under the current method, even if we approved it as a raise system, it would not be sustainable over a period of time. Our personnel budget would balloon way out of control. But a longevity raise system, I believe, is really a lot better than a longevity bonus system, and I think we really should look at that and study that as a possibility. But for this year, we should not go the raise, we should stay the bonus type.
Right.
Because that's what the numbers reflect, is the bonus.
And we're not going to put this in effect till January 1, correct?
No, this is a longevity.
Okay.
This is approved with the budget date approval.
And again, if you'll remember, this was just to set that money aside for a
Right.
longevity program.
Right.
The January 1 was for the third phase of the pay study, which is the second item
Right.
here. But that's not
Part of this.
changing this.
Okay.
The other thing is, we had set aside 10,000 originally for the Flowering Bridge,
Right.
and during the workshop, 5,000 of that was cut out. On review, there was some discrepancy in numbers, and it found that 5,000 could be added back in. I also mentioned during that meeting that really, I would really like to see 5,000 go to the golf course. So, and I spoke with Kathy Tanner today, and I would rather see the 5,000 stay at the Flowering Bridge and 5,000 extra go to the golf course this year, because it's really needed there too.
All right, let's take the first one first, and let's put that aside. Ron, are you okay with doing it as a bonus as opposed to a salary increase?
Yes, sir, because, again, that was a placeholder for the longevity money. If we had decided to do a longevity program, but, like Commissioner Weber said, it's not sustainable for every year. So the idea is that you will have certain people hit those 3, 5, 7, 9-year marks at different times. So you wouldn't expend all of that $42,000 at one time. The idea it would be less than that. So we could do the program once we have a policy in place. But it doesn't affect us if we want to do the bonus
This year.
this year.
Which is what
That's
we've
right.
been doing all along.
Okay, I just want to clear it off the tables, everybody.
Yeah, do that one more year
One more year.
and look at a raise system.
Okay. I'm
Well,
good with
I just need some clarification. In our study, we found that we had a few people who were below the average of their pay grade as compared to the average of other similar municipalities. And I understood that the current budget was going to make some adjustments to help those that were underpaid. Is that still in the budget for this year?
Yes, ma'am. The first two phases of your salary study, which is to bring everybody to the minimum and then to help with compression, those are budgeted as of July 1st. The third phase of the salary study is budgeted January, and that affects the 12 employees that need to be bumped up based on years of service in their position.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that those people who are underpaid are taken care of, and that in some cases, when they follow a given pattern and change to a higher pay grade in a new position, they actually go back to the beginning pay, which almost negates what they had gained up until now. And I really have a concern for the ones that are trying to pay rent or a mortgage, that, particularly rent, that has increased a great deal.
Right.
And we don't want our underpaid employees to have to leave town.
I agree. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They're not gonna go to a lower pay.
Well,
If they changed and moved to a promotion to an upper position, yeah, they might, and they're probably 3/4 to midpoint. They're not gonna go to a base salary or beginning
yes, they
point,
are.
but it's gonna be more than what that was.
Not much, if any. And that concerns me. I just think that
Still, it's
needs to
more
be
pay.
looked at closely.
And that's the nice part. The final phase of your salary study talks about a pay philosophy. And I think that's where this board could
Right.
really work on that.
Thank you.
Okay, do we need a motion to make that change?
No, just with the nods of head, I can go ahead and make those changes and have them
Okay.
ready for you.
Okay.
You got the nod?
The nods?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
The second, if I understand it, Steve, is to,
Five for Flowering Bridge, 5 for golf course.
okay, is there any concern about that?
Well, just that we already increased the golf course.
No.
Look at it.
We gave them money for the cart path.
But that's for a specific project. That's
Right.
not the increase in the annual budget for them.
Well, it
Right.
started out
That's what I was talking.
75,000 and it's now higher.
Well, you're suggesting it went to 81, and you're suggesting it go to 86.
Correct. The 81 goes to the 86.
So really, you're taking 75 to 80, because the other's maintaining the town's equipment.
Yeah, it's
He
the
doesn't-
subsidy
yeah.
of the 75
Because that's all
to
town
80.
equipment was there. That 5,100 was strictly for maintaining that equipment. So his allowance was 75. The other was actually maintaining equipment.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, but we're talking about another 5
Right.
on top of that, which would go to,
80,
Right.
right.
Yeah, they're currently subsidized with 75, and then there's another 5,000 or 6,000 for the maintenance and
Right.
of equipment and that
Town-
kind of stuff.
Town-owned equipment.
And then the special project is the cart path,
Right.
which was funded. But I'm looking at changing the subsidy from 75 to 80
Right,
on an annual basis.
understood.
Well, the intent was that enhancements at the golf course eventually would reduce the subsidy and eventually become self-supporting. That hasn't happened, but that was to be the goal. And they even suggested some things like moving the tennis courts over there to increase their revenues.
That's something
So,
to look at in the
just
future.
something to think about.
Yeah, in the future, yeah. Because I also let them sell liquor then, beer. I said that would also let them, if we move the tennis courts over there, then the county would let them have a liquor license. For some reason, if you don't have a tennis court, you can't have a liquor license at a golf course.
It's just some of the, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to earn more money to,
That helps your revenues and gets your but that's county law, so. That's what we're kicking around, just trying to help them help themselves.
okay, let me summarize it. We would give 5K to Flowering Bridge, an additional 5K to the golf course.
That's
That's
what
what
I'm
you're
recommending.
so we're
Okay.
reducing the Flowering Bridge from 10 to 5
Yes,
to
that's
give
correct.
5 to the golf course?
That's correct,
Right.
yes.
But we had already done that, and then we gave it back.
Yeah, then they took it
But
back.
remember, the Flowering Bridge never had a budget. This is the first year, it was my recommendation to put the 10 in there to begin with, which they never had. So 5 is better than nothing. But 5 is needed at the golf course.
Yeah, actually, our last conversation was 5 and 5, and then in the budget got worked to giving all 10 to the Flowering Bridge. So he's just going back to what we really discussed in our meeting.
Yeah.
So if we turn Morse Park into pickleball and move the tennis courts over to the golf course, we got a good thing
Got
going.
a good thing going. Yep. We're making progress.
Plus, we can stop.
Hey, it's a
on the way home for a
recommendation.
beer.
If you
That's right.
disagree, just say so.
No, I
Okay,
agree.
well,
I agree.
I guess we got the head nod again. If all All in favor of the 5 and 5, nod your head.
I nod my
Yes.
head yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, was there other things? Say no. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. If you have something,
Was there something else we talked about?
Those were the two that we.
Yeah. No, I don't recall anything else yet. But I'll let you know on June the 27th if something comes up.
okay, that'll be good.
All right.
We can do that.
Steve works hard for us.
Yep. Okay, so that was the first item which established a 9 a.m. meeting on the 27th.
Right.
Okay, now we go to item B
Did y'all
under
vote on
9, which is the pay plan and position classification study.
Yeah.
Did you?
Right.
Okay,
Well, he wants to know if we did the motion to set that meeting.
Andy, did they actually vote?
No.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we meet on June 27th, 2017 at 9 a.m. in the morning at Town Hall to adopt the 2017-18 fiscal year budget ordinance.
I second it.
motion made by Bob, second by Mary Ann. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9B, pay plan and position classification study.
Okay. We,
Ron, do you want to talk to that?
I can, we've hit on most of it. As you know, in December 2016, David Hill with HR Consulting Essentials presented recommendations to Town Council regarding our pay plan and classification study. He gave us basically 4 recommendations, 3 of which we've already talked about. 4 is the pay philosophy. So this is scheduled for your approval. And then, of course, we'll have additional discussions later next fiscal year.
Right.
Okay, could I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion, we adopt the new pay plan and position classifications as recommended by HR Consulting Essentials.
Okay, motion made by Bob, do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mary Ann.
amendment,
Discussion.
Amendment?
Wait, okay,
I'd like to make amendment to that motion. It is because we agreed, or we discussed during the budget workshop, that we would adopt the pay plan, which would implement phase 1 and 2 during the budget, or effective July 1, 2017. But the phase 3 would not be effective until January 1, 2018, and that is contingent upon the reorganization being presented to us of some departments. So that's my amendment.
And I agree with that.
I'll second the amendment.
okay, we got, you second, I'm not sure the protocol, but
Well, I can re-say it
you
again.
made the
Yeah,
second,
you
so,
vote on the amendment first, and
okay. So the motion was made
Well,
by Stephen and.
I can second the amendment if I need to do both.
Okay, well, we'll vote on the amendment first. Motion made by Stephen, second by John. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we go back to the other one. Motion made by Bob, second by Mary Ann with the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, moving
See, I
forward.
had all this to talk about.
Okay, number 10 is new business. Okay, Friends of the Flowering Bridge, Bridge Preservation Fund update. I guess that's Linda? There you are. You were in the back before. I looked for you.
She had it up here, permanent special.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Thank you for letting me come here tonight on behalf of the Friends of the Flowering Bridge and bring you up to date on the usage that we've made of the funds from the Preservation Fund. For the benefit of the audience, I thought I might read, I know you all have a copy of the brief summary and some of the detail of the money that's been spent, but for the purpose of bringing up the audience to date, I'm just going to quickly read this brief summary. In 2011, the North Carolina Department of Transportation decided to build a new bridge crossing the Rocky Broad River. The old bridge was deeded to the town, along with $120,000 for the maintenance and preservation of the old bridge. The historic Lake Lure Bridge No. 7 Preservation and Enhancement Plan outlines the responsibilities of the town. In 2012, and again in 2013, the Friends of the Lake Lure Flowering Bridge, following approval by the town council, withdrew a total of $50,000 from the Bridge Preservation Fund to begin the necessary work of establishing the gardens. Since that time, the money has been used to preserve and enhance the flowering bridge in accordance with the Preservation and Enhancement Plan and as outlined in the schedule that you have before you. In addition to these funds, the Friends of the Flowering Bridge have raised $200,000 through donations, membership drives, and other fundraising efforts to further these same goals. In addition, a couple of pieces of information I think everyone would like to know is that in the roughly 6 years since we started building that bridge, not building the bridge, building the gardens on the bridge, we have had over 10,000 volunteer hours, and we are the #1 information request at the Visitor Center. Beats even the Chimney Rock State Park. So, in reviewing the schedule of funds that we have used over the last 5 years, we broke it down into 2 different pieces. One are those expenses that clearly went toward preserving and enhancing the bridge, the gardens. And it breaks down into 4 pieces: the bridge surface, the irrigation and drainage expenses, the electrical expenses, which include, of course, all the lighting along the bridge, and the retaining wall that was built, which was built shortly after the bridge was deeded to the town. The $29,000, roughly a little more than $29,000 has been spent on those specific items. In addition, the Friends have paid, let's see, what's the total here? Roughly $11,000, a little more than that, to not complete, but to move along on the town walkway, because quite frankly, there were pieces of things we needed to do and we couldn't do them. We couldn't put up the welcome terrace, we couldn't put the atrium in, we couldn't build the arbor until we knew where the path was going to be and how we could build around that. So while that was always a town project to be done, the bridge basically paid those expenses to get that paving done. So if you add the 2 together, the bridge has paid $45,416.75 toward both the preservation and enhancement of the bridge and the town walkway. On that basis, we felt that we don't really need to repay, I'm sorry, I missed one piece. We have also donated $5,000 from our money that we have raised. We paid $2,500 in 2014 and $2,500 in 2015 toward the Preservation Fund as reimbursement. If you add all that up together, it's a little over $45,000. We borrowed $50,000. We withdrew $50,000 with your approval. That leaves a little more than $4,500 still remaining to be paid to the bridge, to the Preservation Fund. And we recognize that that's something we need to do unless there are further expenses along the electrical and the irrigation and any additional funds that we might spend on what we consider to be preservation and enhancement expenses. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I hope so.
Well, I want to, I've done some thorough research on the state document that granted the bridge to us, the funding of it by the state, the preservation and enhancement plan, and who's supposed to do what and so on. And in thoroughly reading that, the state document said that they would give us the money for the preservation of the bridge based upon the approval of a preservation plan. The preservation plan was the one presented by the Flowering Bridge Incorporated to the council back in 2011 or January 2012. And that is the plan that was approved by the state before they would give us the money. So it was based on this plan. And yes, the Flowering Bridge Committee had an advance of $50,000 out of that fund, and it was talked about that would be repaid. Again, in further reading of the state documents, the intent of that money was to be spent for the preservation of the bridge. And as a matter of fact, the plan talks about funding for the bridge preservation plan will come from the Bridge Preservation Fund managed by the town and from private donations and public fundraising, which has been over $200,000, and the grants generated through your nonprofit corporation. So everybody has met their responsibilities under the plan as I see it. I don't think, and there was also a lot of rumors back then about the town funding the Flowering Bridge from taxpayer money. That never happened. No money from tax dollars went towards the Flowering Bridge. It is a responsibility of the town to provide electric under the plan and under the bridge grant from the state. And if the plan, and I'm trying to use some logic, I know that's foreign to some people sometimes, but if the plan was for a Flowering Bridge, that is going to cause water to be used. Now, we know that the water usage on the bridge is very high, hundreds of thousands of gallons. And Commissioner Cameron and I had a meeting today with Kathy Tanner looking long range to somehow come up with an alternative water and irrigation process that makes it more sustainable down the road. We cannot continue to use city-treated water for the bridge. And Kathy and I believe we're on the same track on an approach there. But I don't believe the Flowering Bridge owes anything to the town. The thousands of volunteer hours that have gone into that bridge and the influx of tourists that it draws to the town and the economic impact of that by them being in town and spending money and so on. I don't believe the bridge owes anything. And I would like a consensus from the commission on acknowledging that or otherwise.
No, as our discussion today, what this bridge brings to our community is you can't put a dollar amount on it. And we certainly appreciate, as a council and hopefully our community, all the hard effort that goes into it. And we've had this conversation. That money was there exactly for what you've used it for. You've followed every guideline, every volunteer's given their heart and soul to it. And whatever that difference is not owed. That's money that the bridge has worked well within the boundaries of what's in the contract. And us as a community, we need to support and continue operation the way we have. And with the water resources, the two options are either drill a well, which is expensive, but it's not overly. Most wells here are less than 200 feet deep. Put in a pump and maybe service it that way. The other options that's not as attractive would be to pull it out of the river. But we're familiar with both processes. I've done both processes, and probably the well long-term is the way to go. But in the meantime, we need to get you a water source on the other end of the bridge, and I believe we've come up with a way to do that. But this community and per the contract, Bridge doesn't owe us anything, and hopefully the additional funds here, $5,000, will help with the coming year and with the new equestrian center event coming up. And you just can't put a dollar price on what y'all have done for this community.
Why, thank you.
So again, well, I would like to know if there's a consensus that they don't owe anything.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, let me speak up, because I think the Flowering Bridge is one of the greatest things that's happened in this area. They all know my position on this. Someday, and I hate to be the Grinch, but someday 2060, 2070, when the volunteers are gone and the bridge is decaying and so forth, there's gonna be a price tag for taking down this bridge. And I think there should be a reserve fund of some type. I'm not saying that it should come out of your coffers, but who are the beneficiaries right now? The merchants, maybe the merchants be putting in, you know, the restaurants and so forth, be taxed for this in some way. I just think that by, you know, when Steve, when you're reading that document, nowhere did it say in perpetuity. And I really believe that we're gonna have to face that. It won't be this group, but someday we're gonna have to face this. And it's just like ignoring the fact that we're gonna have to replace the dam at some point in time. And I don't know how we deal with that, but I just think that it's something that should be thought about and discussed. And so I wouldn't wanna go on, my personal thing, it sounds like it's 3. I wouldn't go on record right now without saying that there should be some way that we get creative enough to accommodate that future need.
I'd like to say this. I agree with Stephen and Commissioner Cameron 100% on this. This bridge and the volunteers have brought to this this community can't be measured. When it comes to tearing down the bridge, there was an estimate from the highway department when we got the bridge of 120, whatever it was
120.
that they gave us, $120,000. Well, we're dealing with a close to $5 million budget here. When that day comes, it's not gonna come overnight. We're not gonna wake up one morning and all of a sudden we have to tear the bridge down.
Right.
We're gonna have, it's something that'll be years out, and I think that is one thing that we can plan for at the time, because it's not, it's not an insurmountable amount of money. I think we can budget for it when the time comes, and in the meantime, I think we've got a really good thing going. We've got a good group of volunteers over there that need to be encouraged and not have to worry about some long-term eventuality that really may not, who knows how long that bridge will last. That bridge could last another 100 years.
Well, and there is 75,000 still in it, so.
Yeah, there's 75,000
So it's not
in there now, so
120
it's-
we'd have to go after, it's a smaller
with
number.
inflation, it would be something more, but it's not a tremendous number that I think that we need a special reserve for. We've got a reserve funds within the town that right now could more than accommodate it.
Well, and we could always replenish that fund to the 120, like every year with budget, added 5,000 to it. We could do that.
That's just what I'm saying, and I recognize what
yeah.
Bob's saying, and Bob, you're exactly correct. But
Right.
I would recommend that we just do that. We just say, okay, we're going to budget 5,000 a year, 20 years, that's $100,000.
But I'll tell you now, the $120,000 the state gave us, based on their estimate of demolition in 2011, would not even come close to demolishing that bridge today, much less in 2060 or whatever. Yeah, it's a start. It might, but it wouldn't even come close to tearing it down and removing it.
Well, if
in
I may
today's
weigh
dollars.
in,
So,
as a supporter of the bridge, and I agree with everything that has been said. We have 2 concerns about the upkeep of the bridge. The bridge has been an asset not just to the town of Lake Lure, but to Rutherford County and to the region, so far as drawing tourism, articles in our state magazine. We have had, I don't know what the percentage, but a lot of visitors from around the world, not just North Carolina, not just Western North Carolina. And I agree that the benefits have brought tax money into the region to businesses. And I would like to see the chamber and some of the tourist tax revenues looked at for also supporting something that is supporting them. The TDA taxes, and I think it's doable. And I think there's nobody in the town who wants the bridge to go away, but it goes beyond the town. So I hope in the future, whatever the needs may be, and the cost of those needs may be increased, that we reach out and partner with other resources to support it.
We actually have reached out to the TDA recently, and we're having some ongoing discussions with them.
Another thing in the state document is it allows for an inspection of the fund every so often. As long as those funds are used for the purposes of the plan as specified in the plan, and that's validated with receipts back to Sam or like the info paper you provided showing how the money was spent. Sam puts that on record. If that fund's inspected, yes, this is how the money was spent. And as long as it all ties to this plan, in my reading of this, and we have an attorney that can verify it or not, but in my reading of it, that's what it's meant for. And when you read things like the plan is you develop it as a vital link in the trail and walkway system being created between the town of Chimney Rock and Lake Lure. And you surround the scenic walkway with over 500 feet of flowering, four-season pedestrian gardens. You place within this garden indigenous North Carolina plants that will reflect the botanical diversity of the Hickory Nut Gorge. And you make it free. You can't, somebody mentioned, could you charge? You must make it free. All seasons, free of charge for purposes of education, exploration, and inspiration. And so that, whenever you're making that connection and that vital link, it's not just limited to the concrete area of the bridge. You're going to have to come off the ends of it to make all this happen. And the stuff you're doing on the west end right now, to me, all that fits into it. So I'm going to drop the bomb on the commission here about the other aspect of all of this. And I appreciate the sentiment that they don't owe anything. Is they are going to need another advance later this year or early next year in preparation of in finalizing everything to get ready for the equestrian games and the visitors that'll come through town. So I'm going to let you know that now, that they will probably need another advance.
Well, another thing that the general public may not be aware of, and Kathy, forgive me, but I just want to say that the morning that you went over for whatever reason to the garden and the DOT bridge engineers from all over the state followed you in and you gave them Flowering Bridge Course 101 in what we did and how we did it, and who knows where this will go. So I just want to say, a lot of people are noticing and a lot of people are caring. And a lot of donations. I can't believe what people just drop in the box.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a second one popping up somewhere in North Carolina in the next 5 years.
Could be.
Well, ask
Seriously.
Kathy if she's ready for the flowering dam.
Well, on behalf of the Friends of the Flowering Bridge, I thank you all. We appreciate that, and we
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Item B, the sewer easement, property at 1808 Memorial Highway.
This came up last year, Mayor. It was in the January 2016 council packet. I looked at it and I said, whoa, wait a minute, I think we need a survey. The survey showed that the manhole in discussion here was not actually on the property. The property owner disputed that. and has now since gotten a corrected deed that, and a survey that is up to date, and Ron has the original here, that shows that that manhole is in fact on this person's property. The manhole was placed there by the town without an easement, and the individual has asked for an easement, or for us to buy the easement. I understand through Chris Callahan's comments before and Chris Braun, and I think, William, you might have weighed in on this, that it might not be much of a legal case there if we denied this and he took it to court. There might not be much of a legal case, but I feel it's the right thing to do to approve this easement and give the man the $4,000 he's asking for it. So.
I'll make a motion that we, gosh, how do we word it here, that we, do we have a suggested motion, Ron?
No, sir, I wasn't sure which direction y'all would be headed, so.
Okay, that we
request.
approve the payment of $4,000 for this easement.
Actually, I think there was let me get the right, utility easement agreement, it would be,
Yeah, we have,
To
the
approve the
agreement
utility.
has been drafted, but we
That's
just
correct.
needs to execute it.
that's correct.
Yeah.
You would just approve the utility easement agreement,
Yeah.
which I believe has the $4,000 in there as
Right.
payment.
Okay.
Motion made by John. Do I hear a second?
I'll second
Say
it.
4,000.
It's it. I believe it
It's in
did.
the motion if it
I
doesn't.
I believe it did when I
Second.
read
Yeah.
it.
Second by Bob. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
I just have one question. Does the town have easements to other sewer lines that exist on other private properties?
All of them supposed to have an easement.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I don't think so.
The trunk lines do.
The major lines
Yeah.
are usually located within the right-of-ways, but I think
Right.
some of these individual lines are not.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the case, is that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
If they don't, they should be.
That we should.
Yeah.
Well, we should, but are we gonna create
Did you see the forecast?
a situation where we have to pay everybody for easements?
Well, the situation's already there. The manhole is on the guy's property, and he didn't give permission for it to be there. It's, you know, you could, the lawyers will say, well, maybe he's got a case, maybe he doesn't, but he's willing to give us the easement for $4,000, and we can't get the lawyers to take a good look at it for that much. So,
And to relocate, more money
and to
also.
relocate it, and
I
it's the
understand.
time and effort involved, and that's,
Right, that's where we're at. It's just, you spend that in
It's
2
just the
days.
easy way out.
Yeah, you're talking
You could
30,
spend 10, 20,000.
it's
Yeah, you're
it's
probably-
economical way out.
I think you're talking over 30,000 to relocate all that in the lines and
Yeah.
to move it. So,
Well, unfortunately, the legal fees would be much higher.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I've
All
been there.
opposed?
I spent $80,000.
So it's unanimous?
on attorneys. Legal
Okay,
system does not protect
Duke Energy franchise agreement renewal.
I used to have a
Ron, you
big
want to
company,
cover this, because this one,
Sure.
I read through this about 6 times, and I'm not sure what,
25,000.
oh, we got Duke Energy.
Yeah, we've got a representative here. I'll
Okay.
just give a quick update. Franchise agreement with Duke Energy was approved in December of 1957 for a period of 60 years. Recently, Duke contacted us to discuss the renewal of the franchise agreement for an additional 60-year term. The proposed agreement is attached. We're fortunate enough to have Craig DeBrew here with us, who is our local government community relations manager with Duke Energy, and he just wanted to spend a few minutes and talk to you about it.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Nally, Mr. Morgan, first I want to say thank you for the opportunity to address the board this evening, and it has been a pleasure and a privilege for Duke Energy to provide electric service to the town of Lake Lure for the term of our existing agreement, which does expire in December the 9th. And you may not be aware that the existing franchise, as Mr. Nally just said, was obtained nearly 60 years ago, and I may say that I was impressed to find a copy of the agreement on your website, as well as the minutes of the meeting in 1957 when the franchise was discussed and approved. The minutes reflect that at the regular meeting on November 12, 1957, Mayor J. Paul Wilson read the Duke Power franchise, after which Commissioner C. Roy Smith made a motion to accept as read, seconded by Commissioner W. E. Frank Sr. And and they voted unanimously to approve, and a second reading was held at their December the 10th meeting, where they again approved the agreement. Well, obviously, there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then, but both parties are still here, still serving members of the community, growing and stronger than ever, but the clock is ticking on our existing agreement, and that's why I'm here this evening. I recently presented Mr. Nally with a copy of our new franchise template, and I understand he shared that with each of you. And the approval process is much like it was back in 1957. While the agreement does not have to be read aloud at your meeting, state law does require that the new franchise be approved at 2 different meetings. So Mr. Nally and I have already had 2 or 3 discussions regarding the new agreement, and I would like to continue that process, working toward this board being able to approve the agreement at your July and August meetings. Just to provide a very brief overview, we believe the franchise is beneficial to both parties involved. We have over 330 franchises with municipalities in the areas that we serve in North Carolina. It gives the municipality the assurance that a reputable power supplier is operating within the corporate limits, constructing lines in accordance with accepted safety standards. It provides an understanding of where the utility can construct lines without the necessity of acquiring right-of-way from the town for each pole that we set. It provides assurance to the municipality that their property will be protected from damage by the utility when lines are being constructed, and prevents duplicate facilities within the town limits. It also provides the town with a taxpayer willing to pay its fair amount of gross receipts and property taxes. For the utility, the franchise provides a commitment from the municipality that allows us to continuously upgrade our facilities to meet energy needs. This includes such items as constructing new or rebuilding existing lines, upgrading substations in the area, and maintaining the lines that we now have. As you may know, in recent years, we've upgraded the transformer bank in the Lake Lure retail substation. We've added voltage regulators and capacitor banks on our 12 kV distribution feeders, and are currently working on a major upgrade on the feeder that serves the Young's Mountain area up Buffalo Shoals Road. In closing, let me say that we very much appreciate the partnership that we have with the town of Lake Lure and with Rutherford County. And I'm especially proud of the support that we provided during the Party Rock fire last fall. As you know, we had Duke Energy Service personnel on site 24 hours a day for over a week, and supporting the firefighting efforts by de-energizing lines whenever men and equipment were nearby. I'm also proud that the Duke Energy Foundation was able to donate $100,000 to the Western North Carolina Firefighters Association to help fire departments replace equipment and supplies depleted during the wildfire response. So we genuinely appreciate the rights and privileges of our franchise and look forward to working with you and Mr. Nally on the renewal of our franchise agreement. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
On the foundation, does it just fund those kinds of things, or is there any funding available for getting power lines like around our beach underground?
Unfortunately not, but we're willing to talk about projects, but there's no foundation dollars available to convert overhead to underground, unfortunately.
Okay, I know you got a program now out that puts overhead, you call high-risk areas underground and such. But what I'm looking at for a community is, I don't know if it's you or who we need to talk to, but we'd like to look at a process to get a lot of these utility lines around the beach put underground because of the view part of that. Is that something we would talk to you about, or is there someone else that would be involved? But it's very important to us. I mean, we sit in a restaurant and all you see is your power poles and lines, and we appreciate your service. I'm not
Right.
fussing at you, but I'm just this is a need of our community. We've discussed this for several years, how to get these lines underground. I'm an electrical contractor, I'm qualified to 35 kV, but what I want to do is knowing the cost of putting it underground is not exorbitant to go from the points that we want. And therefore, I've looked at it one time with some people that came down, and that price was about 4 times what the actual cost to do the project was. What I'd like to see is if we could negotiate with Duke Power to pay 75% of the true cost instead of the retail cost, and work with us on that. And if you could look at that for us over the next 30 days, see how we could, this is very important. These power lines are draping every view around our beach and all the way really to this office here. And I know it's not the best time in the world to talk about it. We've tried the other lines and we kind of get closed doors on us.
Yes, sir.
And when you're negotiating, it's always nice to be able to say, can you help us? Well, I want you to know our community needs help. We want these lines just from the beach to here. It would probably be a quarter mile. Knowing that, the cost per foot would be roughly 3-phase, 30, 40, 50, probably $50 to $60 an actual foot to run it. And I'd just like to see if there was some way we could partner in that, where Duke could help us as a partner in the utilities, but also we would partner with you and there would be a balance number that we can get this done.
So I'm happy to work with you on that. This is a question that's not unusual to hear from communities across the state. The question is all about cost allocation. Who's going to pay for it? And I know that we do have a pilot program, I believe, with the city of Greenville that set up a way to possibly work through those issues. Let me learn more about that, and I'll be glad to follow up with Mr. Nally, and I'll be happy to meet with you and talk
Could it
about
be
options.
programmed in there for any new lines to go underground? Is that something that can be accomplished with this agreement?
Possibly so, and a lot of we have areas within the town limits that are underground. Generally, we don't along our distribution feeders along public roads, but a lot of times in a private development.
Yeah, if the city of Asheville could do it, I don't see why we can't.
Right.
Well, I worked in Asheville for the last 15 years, and I can tell you there may be what our service people used to call Rat Alley. I don't know, you may be familiar
I know
with
right
that.
where it's at, yeah.
You know right where, that's the only part I know the only little section that's totally underground. But it's an expensive thing to do. It can be done, but I'm
Right.
happy to facilitate
Okay,
that
and
discussion.
especially this is a lower voltage on the utility. 7200 is not a high voltage situation, so you're only using 15 kV cable, so let's lick it and stick it in underground. So I see a way of doing it. I want us to partner, but that's a goal we need to accomplish, and it's around the marina here and then down to our offices. Chimney Rock would also like to do it. Maybe that's a phase 2 or phase 3, but it's something that needs to be done, and we've got you in front of us. You're one of the few that we get to see once in a while.
Right.
And I'd just like to see you look at that for us and give us a true cost without inflating it like the prices. I know they don't want to do it, so they throw this number out that was totally out of this world. And being in the business, I know what the cost is. I'd like for us to negotiate off of that cost.
I'm glad to facilitate that discussion.
I'd appreciate it.
I don't know how long you've been doing the job you're in currently, but just within the past year or so, I started receiving emails from you.
Yes, sir.
That you put out to community leaders and stuff regarding different Duke Power issues and so on, and things you're doing. And I really appreciate it. Those are very informative emails, and I don't know if all the commissioners get them, but they're very helpful.
If they
Thank
don't,
you.
it's because I don't have their correct email. So it's my intent to send it to all the elected officials.
Good idea.
Thank you for that comment.
Yep.
And we do appreciate the work, and it's a team effort, but this is just highly important for our community.
I understand.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you,
All
Greg.
right.
So the action item would be to come back again. You'll be talking, we'll come back next month and the month after.
That's right.
And,
We've made a couple of changes to the proposed agreement. I know the town attorney and myself are working on the possibility of a couple more, but you will have your first reading in July. Your second reading is scheduled for August. So if you have other issues, if you would, just please let me know or certainly give Mr. DeBrew a call.
And anything you come up with, please let our town manager know. Communication on this, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. Item 10D, I don't see Russ in the thing. Point broadband, we've already really discussed this. Bob discussed it at length, and really, the action item is pretty simple, really, I think.
Well, briefly, let the folks know that the proposal is for us to approve the Point Broadband and Pangea to put the transmitter on the water tower. You would not see it above the top of the water tower. It'll all be on this side of the lake, facing down that main part of the lake. The overall plan would provide, once all three locations are in effect, would provide Wi-Fi to approximately 90% of the residences in Lake Lure that can't get it now. And of course, we're also talking about possibility of getting with AT&T and Verizon and adding cell coverage to those same towers in the process. But that's essentially what this is about. And what we're doing tonight is to approve that first step to where they could go ahead and put it on the water tower, and that would catch all of that length of that big channel of the lake from water tower all the way down towards Rumbling Bald. So,
Right, and the only thing I'd like to add to that would be to authorize the town manager to work with Pangea, Point Broadband, and Telrad to identify the other two locations, then to bring to council the needs and what we need to do from that point on, but to go ahead and include that in this so that we can plan on these next two towers, and there's a lot of work to do to get these towers in, so I'd like for the town manager to be authorized to handle that communication.
yeah, that's our recommended motion, is to develop the agreement for the water tower along Highway 9 and pursue the additional two. So that's the recommended motion in there.
Is that your motion, Bob?
That's my motion.
Okay, do I hear a second? Second by Stephen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Definitely.
Item number 11. Do I hear
Oh,
a
yeah.
motion?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay,
Oh,
I
second.
second it.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Wait a minute.